was like a one-day drive. We didn't know how long the lockdown. We're essentially not a non-profit, or we're not from the social place. It's just a collective of Mumbai citizens. So we started thinking that it's a few days of requirement of food. And we went down on the ground and we saw it was not few people but hundreds and thousands of people who didn't have access to food. The government was doing something, but it wasn't reaching most people. And that was the starting point, and initially it was just a 10-day thing where we sourced in some resources and tried to give 500 meals a day. But once we got on the ground, we realized it was not hundreds, but we needed 50,000 meals a day, and there was nobody providing them. The government was doing something, and then we realized that we can't do it alone. We needed the entire city to respond. So we gave a call out to the city, and Mumbai is a very kind city. And we have some history of, that's how we connected with them. We worked with the Election Commission as a group of citizens in 16, 17. So we had some credibility as a group of citizens, so we could collate a lot of people together, and especially from the art community, the first few people were the stand-up comedians who responded. We started doing, and these were the first Zoom sessions on, comedy sessions on Zoom. They were also reacting to the lockdown. They started giving us shout-outs, and as the pandemic extended, we basically got the entire city together. Especially on the art community, there were people who were dancing for us, there were people who were creating poems, and these are not like large artists or large influencers. And from our side, what we did was we made it easy for everybody to be part of this. So if somebody wanted to sing, we didn't tell them that you sing and get us money. We created a platform for them, we created the crowdfunding campaign for them, and they could just do their art and contribute. And that was the starting point. And I think initially it was common citizens doing something, and looking at that larger, I remember Euphoria came organically. They did like an online, but this was not us going to agencies and saying we need influencers. This was like organically the city responding, and this was the first lockdown. Second lockdown, it went further ahead, but people started baking stuff, and without even us being in touch with them, right? They would just put up crowdfunding link, do some micro campaigns, and over a period of 2 years, we kind of mobilized enough funds to fund 7 million meals, 70,000 grocery kits. And the most critical part when the migrant crisis hit, we were in a position to work with the BMC and do 100,000 meals a day. So that was the starting point of what we did. Also during the lockdowns, one was the art partnerships and the outreach, but we also partnered with hundreds of NGOs on the ground. And there we realized that hunger was not just a pandemic thing which needed attention, we needed to go on. So we registered as a non-profit, and there also we have other ways. We have a couple of community kitchens. We don't source food from outside to feed the needy. We find solutions within that. Plus, we have some cool, we use technology, we use a chatbot. We partner with organizations working on the ground. We have an assistance. Maybe about that, Nitila can talk about the community kitchen vertical, and also maybe unheard voices and some of the storytelling. We don't show our beneficiary faces. We don't use sob stories. It's a kind of a disadvantage because that kind of moves people to donate. But because we started as a citizen collective, we have that one rule, and there are other ways we tell our stories.
So I think just taking forward from what Swaraj said, but just giving you a little back end information. Someone asked me to introduce myself. I'll say I'm a Bhatakti Atma with a camera because I really like telling stories. And so when the pandemic hit, I was of course doing my full-time job, but I could not sit on the sidelines, and I thought there were stories that needed to be told, and they needed to be told with empathy. And it was that need of the hour where people needed to know, and I think what we do at Khaana, hunger has always been existent in the city. It was just amplified during the lockdown, and it was visible during the lockdown. What we did during the lockdown was different because we sourced food through kitchens, hotel kitchens. But during the second lockdown, we thought it was essential that our beneficiaries also be included in the solution. They become part of the mechanism because Mumbai, or many cities as such, don't have a crisis mechanism system or a functioning crisis mechanism system. and you couldn't depend, and I think that's what also the lockdown kind of showed us, that you couldn't solely depend on the government. The civil society and other organizations were like a patchwork of organizations that sort of came together that helped build, the resilience that we saw and the aid that it gave. So the community kitchen was a model that we had where we got the women from the community who were beneficiaries, who wanted to step up. If you went and you spoke to them, they said कि भाई हम घर पे नहीं बैठना चाहते. We don't want to sit home. We ourselves want to be contributing to the fight and tell us what we can do. And these were self-help groups that we sort of fired up. And we set up a small kitchen. So the kitchens don't belong to Khaana Chahiye. They belong to the community, they belong, and the operations are looked after by all the women who are employed. So we have two kitchens, one in the heart of the city, which is at Khaana, which is run by a minority community. There are 10 women who work in the community. And there's the other one which goes beyond Mumbai, which is the MMR region, which is in Ulhasnagar, which is run by a transgender collective. And this was very consciously one of the decisions that we wanted to bring them into the fold, because usually, and even during the first lockdown, we had the trans community who are beneficiaries, but we wanted to also put them on the other side and make sure that they were helping not only their community, but they also empowered themselves. So we did that, and we have the kitchens that are running. And, like how Swaraj mentioned, there are a lot of times where we do want to talk about the ground realities, but we want to keep in mind that, like I said, that I'm a Bhatakti Atma with the camera. I know that it comes with a certain privilege because you always have the camera in your hand and you're looking at someone else and you're telling their story. And I think that should be also onto them, where you are allowed or you take their consent, their permission to try to tell their story. So that's what we did even during we still continue that idea where we blur the faces of beneficiaries who are getting the food. We do not show them on our social media. You will never see any of the faces. When we talk about what we do at the community kitchen, we try to talk about definitely the beneficiaries, because they are the absolute needy in the bracket of who need the food day to day to survive. But we try to talk about these stories by talking about how they empower our kitchen women. So I'll probably talk about two stories from the kitchen. The ones who are employed and who are working, someone named Hamida Babi, she runs the operations. She was one of the first women who stood up from a community and said that her daughters, she's got two daughters, who need to be educated. And she was a victim of domestic abuse at her house. But she wanted to step up, and even when she did so, in the community, there were threats that she and her daughter received on multiple occasions, where they were warned that if they'd step out, they would get acid thrown on them. They would have people from the community walking up to them when they were, attending classes or having that access to outside facilities. But I think she powered through. And to be able for her to say today that the salary that she receives from the kitchen goes to her loan that she's taken for her daughters who are pursuing nursing is a big deal. So it's not just we feeding the ones who are absolute need, but also empowering women who are for the first time in their entire life stepping out and are able to do something and contribute to the households. I think that's what sort of makes it a wholesome story for us. In just line to that, I will mention with the multiple times we interacted with, closely with the social sector, we found these stories very intriguing. So we thought we wanted to give these women and these children an agency of their own to tell their own stories. So myself, Bhavya Gupta and Neeraj Shethe, we started a platform called The Unheard Voices. And what we did through that was go and interact with a small community. And I mean, it's not an unknown fact that women and children are like a unit and a very integral part. So when we spoke to the women, we'd often find the children lingering around and we'd interact with them. So we wanted to ask these women about their aspirations, about their history and what they wanted to do, what their children wanted to do. And we did small interventions like that. And maybe you can like look through what we've built with the Unheard Voices. And though we had consent from them wanting to tell their stories, we have drawn on their faces. And the idea is to take this the platform way ahead. And the day where the women like Meenu, Jasmine are comfortable telling their stories with their faces, we are happy to have them go up. Until then, we want to make sure that they are keeping their dignity. They have an agency to talk about what they do. And some of these women spoke about how their husbands had lost their jobs during the pandemic and how they stood up for them with the skills that they had at hand. So Jasmine could make dosas. So she put a dosa stall right outside her house. And she would charge a certain amount if you needed extra chutney or half a dosa. So what we wanted to also do is make this platform into a space where we also can help them crowdfund. So the donors or anyone who wants to listen to their stories can track their progress. Or Jasmine also can tell that, I think I'm getting bulk orders now. I'm doing party orders. Someone's giving me a large scale order. These are the things that came up during conversations with them. Is I think I need a longer pan. So that's them stepping up for the first time, talking about what they want and they think they deserve. So we're very happy that what started as Khaana Chahiye, what started as giving food has sort of slowly amplified into giving women voices, getting them to step up for the first time, empowering them, and having these smaller bubbles of wholesomeness that you'd probably be able to see if you look at the page that we have built. So yes, that's us.
In addition, I'll just add one thing, that because we couldn't talk about our beneficiaries, we started a blog series, Stories Behind the Mask. So we started speaking about our volunteers, and that led to more people relating to our campaign and kind of identified that this is a city's campaign, this is not an NGO, and that helped us kind of build it into a movement. And as Ritila mentioned, there are a lot of stories on the ground of resilience. It's not just of need. So that we amplified through Hamida Bhabi and all these people. They are our, they are our spokespeople. So that has enabled whatever.
The story of Travelers University is actually it's a story of a project which received support at the right time, being converted into an organization, and now creating a support structure for other people. So, Travelers University, we are now 5 years old, but the story started in 2015-16. Then Rahul is one of the co-founders. He designed a gap project for himself. It was his individual project. It was called 52 Parinte, which is the name of the fellowship also. His idea was, why is that the whole society is asking me to become a doctor, an engineer, an advocate or something, very similar things. And what he found was there are no role models. His parents knew the same kind of people, his school teachers knew the same kind of people, even the college professors knew the same kind of people. Now he said, I don't want to be any of these things. So how do I find my own mentors? How do I find my own teachers? He said, I'll do that myself. So he set out on a journey. He said, I'll travel for 1 year. So that is why the 52 stands for the number of weeks. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'll stay for 1 week with each of them. And I'll learn from them directly. Very simple idea. And I will document them because he is a writer and he wanted to do video. He wanted to learn video making. So that was his learning. So he said, I'll make videos, I'll document stories. So that was the genesis of the story. Now, when the support part comes, he met Osama sir in one of the meetings, one of the gatherings. So I was actually with him that day. We were presenting our small idea that we were looking for because he needed some funds and some basic computer setup and all. And Osama sir, he gets intrigued with ideas. He said, "Kal office aa jana." So he went to office. He said, "Haan, ye ho jayega, project ho jayega, you can go." And he became a fellow, And that is how we are connected with DF actually. It's a long connection that way. But that investment in one idea has led to the organization today. And that is what we believe in. How can we create this support structure for more people? So he set out the back end and everything was taken care by DF. There are 52 stories. There are 52 videos which came up. And he traveled more than 25,000 kilometers in one whole year, basic transport and all. He met all kind of people, educators, a person who has gone to jail, turned an organic farmer right now. He met people making pottery, he met people making different kinds of crafts, whatever he wanted to learn in that time. And then what happened was, he was receiving a lot of people who said, "हमें भी ये journey करनी है, we want to embark on such a journey, but we can't do it alone. Can you support us? You know, how do we do this?" So then, through more interactions and through more brainstorming, we said, let's set up a platform. And that is how the name came, the Travelers University. So it's a platform for people who want to travel, but for learning. Because right now a lot of travel is happening for tourism and leisure, which is the downside. Like, I don't want to get into that, but it's creating a negative impact. So so that's what, and the name university came because right now what we believe is the whole universe, you can learn from everyone, you know, you can learn from everywhere, from anywhere. But the idea of university has been usurped. Right now university is just a big building where you can get a degree or a diploma. Nobody talks about what kind of learning I want to get. Nobody talks about why actually I do want to learn about engineering, or why do I want to do an engineering course. It's mainly connected with the placement, or mainly connected with what will I get after, you know, what is I am going to do during this 4 years, nobody is talking about. We design experiential learning programs using travel as a pedagogy, and we find ourselves, we are working on alternative education. And most of the programs are also focused on alternative livelihoods. So we call them livelihoods. So it's basically a combination of two words, alive plus livelihood. And it is a term which has been coined by some of our friends, and we asked them whether we can use this term, and they were very happy to do that. What we have realized while talking to people, and again talking about an urban youth, because that is where we work. So with most of the urban youth, a lot of people with whom we interact, they're not finding joy in what they are doing, or they're not finding a sense of meaningful work in what they are doing. So what we realized was, okay, but at the other spectrum, during our travels, we are meeting so many people who don't feel like they're working. It feels like it is part of their life, you know. So they feel alive while doing it. So then we realized, how do we bridge this gap? So for people who want to get into a livelihoods, how do we bridge this gap? And that is where the fellowship that we do came up. So we wanted to continue with the name 52 Parinde, because we thought if 152 Parinde can lead to what Travelers University, so if there are many people doing it, it can lead to many different initiatives. So the idea is very basic. We focus on self-directed learning. So you choose your own teachers, you choose your own mentors, you choose how you want to learn, you choose when you want to learn. So the whole ownership of learning is on the learner. And the fellowship works, we take 8 fellows. So each fellow, they will choose a topic or a domain that they want to explore. Mostly it lies in the alternate realm, for which there are no courses outside. So people have done politics of communities, you know, how those communities functions. People have done alternative education, people have done conservation and coexistence. People have chosen art as a tool for social change. Some of the fellows have done natural way of growing. And what they do is, for 7 to 8, for 4 months they travel. They can go to any part of India, depending on where they find these mentors whom we call. And they stay with them for 2 weeks. So each fellow will stay with one person for 2 weeks. They shadow them basically. So the Parinde have to arrange their stay, their food and everything at their place. But like the fellows have stayed from a mosque to a temple to a community center to a farmhouse to anywhere where the people can arrange. You know, that's the diverse experiences that the fellows have had. And they learn directly. So what we are focusing here is more than the academic knowledge. You understand the nuances of what actually working in that field means. What are the challenges as well as the opportunities, and what is the ground reality? What is the actual thing that happens when you work? Because conservation from outside might look like something which is, you know, very different, but what does that day to day mean? So if I want to get into that field, I get into that field doing the actual reality and not from a utopian idea or a very romanticized idea of social work, and you know. So that happens because they are day in and day in living with those people. So they get a very holistic understanding of that domain. And how do we connect the art side of it is because we also wanted to redefine the role models. As I was saying, you know, why do people keep on going into the same field is because they do not have reference points. So today, if I want to be a butterfly conservationist, how many people do know that first of all, whether that's a livelihood, second of all, who is working that on in India, third of all, what does it mean? But then there are people who have made butterfly parks, private butterfly parks. There are people who have made a community butterfly parks. So these are the people whose stories. So we all the fellows, wherever they go, they write the stories of the people from both the lenses. So we use the personal lens, which is the personal motivation lens, and then the livelihood lens. What does it means to get into the livelihood? Because we feel storytelling has been prevalent from the history of oral tradition or oral storytelling is why we are right now talking about a lot of things, but storytelling also needs connection. How do you connect with those stories? So that is why the personal element of these people is very important for us. So all these stories use that personal lens to make them relatable, to make them more easily identifiable with the youth. And then the fellows also use art for their expression of their experiences. So the book also contains their experience of each and every place wherever they went. Some people have used art for it, some people write it, some people make videos, some people draw, some people sketch. So that liberty is with them to use any form of art that they want to use to express themselves, because that is another thing that we realize, like each individual is very different in how they learn and how they function, which is lacking in the current education system. There everybody has to be fit into one kind of learning methodology, but in the fellowship we follow a very different learning methodology for each fellow. So they have that liberty to how do they want to learn, how they want to as much as possible. There are certain things which they have to do. So for example, even for the story writing, right now the fellows can only write in 3 languages, that is Hindi, English and Malayalam, because those 3 languages we understand within the team. So we could only extend it to that. In future we would also want them to extend beyond that, because that also becomes a restriction for many people. But we, in our own ways, we find different ways. There was one person who wanted to write in Marathi. We did Marathi translation to Hindi, then Hindi to English. So that effort from our side we do put into it, just to accommodate a lot of different learning methodologies and also to accommodate different kind of people. And these stories, they get onto our website, they also get on Vikas Sangam website, they also get on DF website. And we feel we want to, like I was talking about a livelihood, the larger goal is to make a livelihood more visible, more relatable, and then also to create those support structures, which is first of all is information sharing, that such a thing exists. Second is what are the resources that are available in terms of online. Third is how do we connect them to these people. So for example, today if somebody wants to work on butterfly conservation or waste management, we have already built a platform. It is called livelihood.org. So it has information that ways. What are the knowledge required, skill set required, mindset required, what are the books that are available, who are the people who are working on it, what are the workshops that are happening, what are the different fellowships happening, all that event calendar is also there. And at the same time also these different stories, not just by us, but which have been curated by the whole ecosystem is there. So another thing that we do is we work at ecosystem level. So the platform, we are just anchoring it, but we are also asking more people to send in their stories and to put out more information there. So it's a collaborative platform that we are building. And then apart from that, the support system that we are creating, then another thing is just connecting with people. Connecting people with different opportunities, connecting people with different fellowships, connecting people with different people that ways. And in that ways we are connected to a lot of alternatives happening in India. Alternatives to energy, alternatives to education, alternatives to health, alternatives to different things. Basically the alternatives to the dominant model of development that we are following, which we believe is not working for more than 1% of the population, which is again the top billionaires. So what are the models that can be that are an answer to this, or what are the models that can propose solution for this? So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
इन जगहों पे जब वो लड़कियां रहती हैं, स्लम एरियाज में, दिल्ली की हम बात करें, जहाँ से हम लोगों का सेंटर शुरू हुआ आज से 13 साल पहले, तो उन एरियाज में जब वो लड़कियां रहती हैं, हर तरीके के अब्यूज को उन्हें झेलना पड़ता है। अब जब हम चाइल्ड अब्यूज की बात करते हैं और चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन की बात करते हैं तो उससे एक स्टेप पीछे हमें जाकर देखना होता है कि अगर चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन और चाइल्ड अब्यूज की हम बात करेंगे तो एक स्टेप पीछे आपको फैमिली प्रोटेक्शन देखना पड़ेगा कि अगर वो फैमिली प्रोटेक्ट है, जिसे हम कहते हैं एक्सोसिस्टम पूरा, कि अगर फैमिली प्रोटेक्ट है तब वो जाके चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्ट होता है। तो हम चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन के साथ साथ उसकी फैमिली प्रोटेक्शन पे काम करते हैं कि अगर वो फैमिली हमें वल्नरेबिलिटी मैपिंग करती है कि ये फैमिली गवर्नमेंट लिंकेजेस हैं इनके पास या नहीं है, जितनी लिंकेजेस कम होते जाएंगे उतना ही एब्यूज का केस बढ़ता चला जाएगा कम्युनिटी में, क्योंकि जब वो फैमिली की प्रोटेक्टेड नहीं है तो वो चाइल्ड कहाँ से प्रोटेक्टेड होगा। तो पहले हमारा काम चाइल्ड और देन फिर हम देखते हैं कि ये फैमिली प्रोटेक्टेड है या नहीं। हमारा मेन काम जो रहता है दिल्ली में और दिल्ली से बाहर के स्लम बेस्ड जो एरिया है वहां से लड़कियों के स्कूल्स में एडमिशन कराना। रैंक पिकर्स हैं, बेगर्स कम्युनिटी है, तो ये वो लोग हैं जिन्होंने कभी स्कूल देखा ही नहीं ना ये जाना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि अगर हम अपनी कम्युनिटीज में देखते हैं कि अगर एक आदमी कूड़ा बीन रहा है या रैंक पिकिंग कर रहा है या कोई भी काम कर रहा है तो वो उसका बेटा भी वही काम करेगा या बेटी भी वही काम करेगी। तो हम चीजों को यहाँ पर ये देखना जरूरी है कि जो इंटरजनरेशनल चीजें चल रही हैं कि पहले वही हुआ फिर वही होता रहेगा, खासकर लड़कियों के केस में, तो वहां पर हमें ये चीजों में सुधार लाना है। तो जो प्रोत्साहन का काम करने का तरीका है वो हार्ट मॉडल पे काम करता है, HEART, हार्ट।
आप बहुत इंफॉर्मेशन दे रहे हो ना, we'll use the translation, we'll do an English translation. Ashwini and Jenny, can you both help please?
So Protsahan Foundation basically works in the birthday system, and birthdays but the family itself is secured is a question that there is. So whether the family has government linkages or they are connected with other systems of protection, that is something which they are working on.
Yes.
And there's another model which is called
हार्ट
model, which is going next.
प्रोत्साहन हार्ट मॉडल पे काम करता है, HEART, हार्ट। H रिप्रेजेंट फॉर हीलिंग और हेल्थ, E रिप्रेजेंट फॉर एजुकेशन, A रिप्रेजेंट फॉर आर्ट्स, R रिप्रेजेंट फॉर रिकवरी फ्रॉम ट्रॉमा। वो बच्चियाँ जो घर में ट्रॉमा सह रही हैं या कहीं भी वर्क स्कूल में ट्रॉमा सह रही हैं, घर में हैं कि कभी अब्यूज हुआ उसके संग किसी भी तरह का, हो सकता है घर के अंदर उस चार दीवारी के अंदर जहाँ से उसको बाहर नहीं जाने दिया जाता उसी के अंदर अब्यूज हुआ, तो उस ट्रॉमा से रिकवरी हीलिंग आपको धीरे धीरे करानी पड़ेगी। एंड T स्टैंड फॉर टेक्नोलॉजी, कि आप जब सारा काम कर लेंगे तो आपको टेक्नोलॉजी पे आके रुकना पड़ेगा कि आप उसको रिकवर कराया, आपने एजुकेशन दिलाई, सारा काम कराया, तो उसके बाद आपको टेक्नोलॉजी से उसको कनेक्ट कराना पड़ेगा। हमारे पास फेलोशिप प्रोग्राम है, डिजिटल लैब है हमारा दिल्ली में, तो वहाँ पर हम लड़कियों को डिजिटल स्टेम स्किल्स सिखाते हैं, जैसे साइंस, टेक्नोलॉजी, इंजीनियरिंग, मैथमेटिक्स, तो वो सारी चीज़ें हम उनको सिखाते हैं। उसके बाद फेलोशिप हमारे पास रहता है जिससे जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज प्रोवाइड करते हैं। तो जो हमारी साइकिल है वो ऐसा नहीं है कि हमने चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन शुरू करा वो बच्ची 12, 13, 14 साल के आके नहीं। वी हैव डिफरेंट सेंटर्स, हमारे पास बहुत सारे सेंटर्स हैं, 5 सेंटर्स हैं उस कम्युनिटी में। एक में एजुकेशन का काम होता है, एक में चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन का होता है। जब वो बच्ची, एक में लर्निंग सेंटर के वहाँ पर वो बच्ची पढ़ती है या वो लड़की पढ़ती है, जब उस लड़की ने 12वीं कर ली उसके बाद हम डिजिटल सेंटर में उसको भेजते हैं जहाँ पे वो स्टेम स्किल्स को सीखती है। देन हम जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ के लिए हम उनको रास्ते दिखाते हैं, हम एक पाथवे प्रोवाइड करते हैं कि जब आपको सारी चीज़ें देती, स्टेम में आपको काम आ गया, तो फिर हम जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटी के इनेबलर्स जो हम वर्ड यूज़ करते हैं वो अपनी उन लड़कियों को हम बनाते हैं।
So heart, like I think is told in English what it stands for. So the basic idea is child protection is the starting point, but then after the healing and what is the way forward. So that is where the tech part comes, wherein they have different centers where they teach them different around digital, also the STEM, science, tech, the STEM subjects, so that they can also after the healing part, but how do they lead a life. So that is also the important focus of the work that they do, and for that they have different kind of centers wherein different kind of programs they run.
प्रोत्साहन चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन या चाइल्ड अब्यूज पे DCPCR दिल्ली ब्रांच के संग काम करता है। अभी हमारे जो ट्रेनर्स हैं, जो ऑफिसर्स हैं, चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर्स हैं, उन्होंने जयपुर में ट्रेनिंग करी 56 कोचेज़ के साथ, स्पोर्ट्स कोचेज़ के साथ। तो हम बात करते हैं कि वो स्पोर्ट्स कोचेज़ काम करते हैं स्पोर्ट्स के फील्ड में, लेकिन चाइल्ड सेफ्टी की जब बात आती है या फिर उसको सेफ कैसे रखना है गर्ल्स को, तो उनके ऊपर ट्रेनिंग लेने की जरूरत पड़ती है। तो वो सारा काम प्रोत्साहन ऐसे कंटेंट डिलीवर का जिसे हम काम कहते हैं वो भी करता है। गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स में प्रोत्साहन के प्रोग्राम्स चलते हैं, जहाँ हम स्टैम्प का काम, डिजिटल काम, प्रोत्साहन का गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में लेके जाते हैं, क्योंकि हमारे पास लैब्स हैं, सेंटर्स हैं, लेकिन एक लिमिट पे आके वो लैब्स और वो सेंटर रुक जाएंगे। लेकिन जब आप उसी मॉडल को गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स में लेके चले जाओगे, स्ट्रक्चर कर लोगे, तो फिर वहाँ पर आपको इन बिल्ड स्ट्रक्चर मिलेगा, आपको कंटेंट डिलीवर वहाँ पे करना है, जिससे आप बहुत ज़्यादा डेप्थ में काम कर सकते हैं।
So they are also working on delivering the content and training more people, because Protsahan will have a limit in terms of what number of centers they can open. So they have done coaching with the sports coaches in Rajasthan recently with 56 coaches, and also in Delhi they are working with government schools so that their centers can be replicated in those schools, and it can be done at a bigger level that way. So because once the government gets involved into it, then more centers can come.
Thank you.